Alright guys, and welcome back to Formula 1 news. The Spanish Grand Prix is coming up in just a couple of days time, and many teams are bringing brand new upgrades this weekend. Red Bull are said to bring something entirely new, a brand new idea this weekend. What could that be? Could it be the zero-pod idea that Mercedes played around with and then abandoned? Ferrari though, they've got some big changes coming, as we would expect with Mercedes as well, to consolidate some improvements seen in Monaco. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Apologies for no videos in a few days. I did the one briefly before the Monaco Grand Prix on the Mercedes upgrades. Been away in Toronto, so I haven't been able to do much over the last couple of days, but we're back in business now, baby, and back on the daily schedule. Some quick comments on Monaco as well, because qualifying was phenomenal to watch live. That Sector 3 Verstappen did. I think Alonso, the way they set up his car meant that it was better in the first couple of sectors than it was in Sector 3. Verstappen was right on the limit though. I'm not sure if Alonso thought that he'd done enough actually, because it felt like he wasn't quite on the limit in Sector 3. Maybe he could have got pole, but anyway, Verstappen converted the win. This was the top 10, kind of incredible actually. Ferrari, I mean, what is going on over there, honestly? Like, they just messed things up in the race again. Sainz spinning didn't work out. Perez nowhere to be found. He had a disaster weekend. The crash in qualifying was frankly just embarrassing, right? To bid it in the wall on like Q1. I mean, come on, you can't be doing that. Ocon with a phenomenal third. I will say on Alonso though, that when the rain hit, I mean, the race was phenomenal as well towards the end of it. Alonso had a chance to win this race because they pitted one lap before Verstappen. The call to Verstappen was, look, just survive on these mediums as long as you possibly can, and when we need to pit, we'll do so, because it wasn't 100% clear that they actually needed to pit there, because the track was still dry in places, but obviously going to the inters was necessary when it started to rain more heavily. Alonso pitted for the mediums, hoping that it would kind of dry up a little bit. The issue is with that strategy is that even if it did stay dry, Verstappen was just going to pit again for, you know, softs or whatever, and do the rest of the race, and that would have been absolutely fine, and Alonso wouldn't have won. The only way for Alonso to try and win was to pit for inters then and there, hope that it rained much harder as it did, and then catch up on Verstappen and during Verstappen's in-lap. And Verstappen was on 55 lap odd mediums. He was going so slow on his in-lap, and if Alonso had pitted for the inters, they'd have come out neck and neck. I saw an analysis on it based on where Tsunoda was, who was a lap down but came out of the pits on inters a few seconds ahead of Alonso did. He came out on the mediums. So if they'd have done what Tsunoda did, and Tsunoda killed off about 10 seconds on Verstappen in that one lap, because Verstappen was going so slowly to not crash into the wall. So if Alonso had pitted for inters, there's a very good chance he comes out ahead or wins this race. Doesn't happen though, Verstappen gets it done. All things considered, a good result for the Mercedes guys, and again, a disaster weekend for Stroll and for, well, of course, Perez, who it does feel like the championship is now just going to be done and dusted in this European split. There was also, though, some undersides of cars being shown, finally. We saw the Mercedes getting craned up into the air. This was the underside of the floor of that new Mercedes floor concept, which is, I mean, look, frankly, it's pretty similar. It's a floor. I don't know all the details and the intricacies here. It does look somewhat different, especially towards the rear, where the diffuser comes into play of the Red Bull, because Perez, after he went into the wall, it was also picked up, and there's been some debate as to whether this, should have been done, but fundamentally, we don't usually get to see the floor, so it's pretty interesting to see what's happening here. So, yeah, certainly towards the front, you allow the certain amount of tunnels that contribute to this outwash effect, but the thing is, it's super difficult for teams to copy any of this, because even if you zoom in here, and this is a pretty high quality image, you can't really tell how deep some of these sections are. You can see the general flow and the ideas, but some of the complications on this Red Bull floor towards the rear are super impressive and detailed, to be honest, and you can't tell from a 2D shot quite what the dimensions are, but maybe I'm sure engineers have been studying this over the last couple of days to try and figure out, alright, can we take some inspiration? It's unlikely that anyone's going to be able to copy this, but can they take some inspiration from the Red Bull floor going forward? Because fundamentally, that's where the magic of the Red Bull is. It might in part be due to the suspension, but the floor is what gives these cars their edge, and Red Bull and Newey have nailed that more than anybody else has. Christian Horner says, you know, a bit of a show and tell from all the teams, the same for everyone, and I'm sure that Red Bull aren't exactly happy about this, but they've already got the best car by a margin. I'm sure they're not too frustrated about it. Even Toto Wolff said, like, I don't even know why they did that. You could have just put it on a truck. You're showcasing a car to everyone in the world, and of course it was Hamilton first after the small incident with the front wing, which thankfully for Mercedes didn't didn't really damage any new parts, and then of course it occurred for Red Bull. Speaking of Red Bull though, quite a big update actually with 2 Red Bull engineers going over to, well, Ferrari shortly, but also there was this confirmation from Red Bull and McLaren that Rob Marshall, he's been around Red Bull for absolutely years, is going to be joining McLaren as their new technical director of engineering and design. So Red Bull say, look, we're going to miss this guy. He's been around a long time there and is now going to be going over to McLaren. So pretty big deal for them and for Red Bull themselves. But also Helmut Marko says, and this is something that will affect the top teams and always has done really, but Red Bull have done this previously as well, where they go to Mercedes engineers and say, hey, we'll pay you double what you're currently getting paid and come and join us. I think Red Bull have done that in the past, and now it's happening to them with other teams that maybe employ less staff and have less expenses elsewhere, come through and say, hey, we'll pay you double what you're currently getting paid. Come over to McLaren or to Ferrari or wherever, and it's going to happen, and it's going to, the cost cap is going to affect especially teams like Red Bull, who have a lot of top engineers that are getting paid a decent salary, I guess, might get pulled away by other teams. This could be one example. Let's talk then about these upgrades that Red Bull are going to be bringing to Spain. So we expect new things for most teams. This is the time of that European split, the Spain, the Silverstones, where you get loads of new things. Perfect circuit to test things out as well. And Helmut Marko says, we are going to try something new in Barcelona. So this is very interesting, right? Because their car is borderline perfect. The only small weakness it really ever seems to have is that its qualifying pace isn't always quite there compared to where it is in race pace. And that could be because the way the suspension works, the anti-dive on the front, means that it's more difficult to warm up the front tyres and get them quite up to temperature. Does great for tyre wear though, for straight line speed, for DRS, and also for just generating downforce in general through the corners by being able to run the car much lower. And it seems like, I think it's been pretty clear now, that this concept is the one with the highest ceiling. If Mercedes zero pods from last year did what Mercedes expected them to do without the porpoising and stuff, they would have been right there with Red Bull, if not faster. But the ceiling of the zero pod concept, with the way they were going with the exposed area of the floor being greater to generate more downforce from the floor, rather than using the side pod with the undercut to accelerate air that way, it seems like Red Bull's approach straight up has a higher ceiling, and that's why we were seeing such dominance. So I don't expect, as some have been speculating, that this upgrade, this try something new for Red Bull, is going to be they're going to try a zero pod, because as we saw with Mercedes, you can't just change the side pod design and be like, all right, fantastic, like that's job done, we're going to see how it goes, because everything, combines, right? All the airflows are super integrated. However, it would be very interesting, wouldn't it, if Red Bull turned up with some idea, because Michael says it's going to be something new, something they haven't tried before. If they were to turn up with something that was in some way Mercedes inspired, it would be very interesting. So who knows what these upgrades are going to be. I thought honestly they would just keep on chucking a couple of extra tenths on the car where they can, and update things they want to. But something new sounds like it's not exactly radical necessarily, and I imagine the car is going to look the same. But I'm definitely intrigued to your speculation of what that could be in the comments section below. And also Anthony Davidson, who works for Mercedes as a sim driver as well as being on the Sky Sports broadcast from time to time, says, look, this new concept with the side pods, like, they stick out more, but it is faster in the wind tunnel and in the simulations, and probably on track as well, right? And we're expecting a consolidation upgrade. That was the rumor a while ago that Mercedes were going to bring their main upgrade to Imola, which never happened, so it came in Monaco instead, and then it was going to be the consolidation upgrade in Spain that was going to take it to where it is for now, with more upgrades coming down the line. So that's on the Mercedes front. Ferrari, though, they're bringing another major upgrade package as well to Barcelona. No new front suspension, though, which has been a key talking point of why Red Bull and Aston Martin are so competitive. But it's going to be a completely revised floor, visible changes to the bodywork, aiming to get more downforce and consistency out of the car. The issue that Fred Vasseur and the Ferrari guys have is that they can't really change their car now. They have stuck with this concept, they've decided to develop it, and this is probably what they're going to have to be stuck with until 2026, because Mercedes decided, you know what, we've got to get out of it, stick the zero pods in the bin, we've got to go down the Red Bull route at least a little bit and try to win in the coming years. But Ferrari have said, no, we like our concept, we think it's going to work, and we're going to stick with it effectively, which, to be honest, you look at the numbers in the standings, and yes, there's been other miscellaneous factors in play here, but the idea that Alonso has 93 points, and that is more than Ferrari combined, right? Sainz and Leclerc have combined 90 points, and Alonso has more than both Ferraris. So it's not really a great sign, is it, for Ferrari and this concept design? And yes, there's always other factors in play, and look, in quali, they're pretty good. Average quali position, Alonso's number one, then Leclerc, then Sainz, then Verstappen, then Russell Hamilton, then Perez. Obviously had a tragic weekend this time for him, but like Perez 8th, I mean, yeah, that's pretty bad. Verstappen, I mean, most of those incidences were not in his control. And also from Formula Addict, I saw this, comparing the performance performance of the 2023 and 2022 Ferraris, and I didn't even realize that Charles Leclerc's lap in 2022 was actually quicker than this year's lap. Now, maybe he was more on it last year or whatever, and obviously that was the pole position. The track conditions are different and stuff like this, but still, the idea that Ferrari last year actually went quicker than this year's Ferrari is not an especially good sign for their car, especially because they're usually quite good at Monaco. So yeah, it didn't work out for them, of course. A couple of other things to mention here. Thought it was pretty funny that Alpine, again, like, I mean, this guy, Lauren Rossi, man, he always turns up after they have a good result and like gets super hyped about the team. And he says, I fully expect to be in front of Mercedes and with Ferrari at the next race. So obviously, you know, well, that implies that Mercedes are behind Ferrari, which I'm not necessarily sure is going to be the case again. And realistically, it was just a great quali lap from Ocon that put them in this position to actually get the podium on Sunday. But yeah, still, I'm not so convinced by this. But, you know, fair play to Alpine. They've made some improvements lately, it's got to be said. There was also this from Sky, who are partnering with Formula One to create a first ever Formula One broadcast for children, starting from Hungary. Now, there's many obvious jokes to be made about this and which fan bases might, you know, enjoy this, all this sort of stuff. But look, what do you guys think about it? I think it's pretty entertaining in a way. I wonder what sound effects they're going to be adding, right? I think they should have a soundboard of like all the classic Formula One moments. Like they need Alonso's like karma, right? They need him to, you know, if you hit the soundboard, that comes up just to get the kids involved in what the memes are in the scene. But yeah, augmented graphics, special features to enhance it for younger audiences. Interesting idea. I probably won't be tuning in, but I'm sure we're going to see some of the comedy that comes as a result of it. This, though, is Spain. The big change this weekend, which I'm looking forward to, is the removal of the chicane. Thank the Lord, it's gone. And turn 13 is back, as it was back in, what, 2005, when Alonso, did he win here? Did he stick it on pole here? Something like that anyway. The lap times as a result of this are probably going to get down in like the 110 ranges. I think probably the lap gets, what, 8 seconds quicker, 9 seconds quicker maybe as a result of this change. So yeah, I think it's really exciting for the track. And also there was a chance, I will say, because finally weather, like inclement weather, rain was predicted in Monaco, and it actually happened. Can you believe it? So I will just mention here for Spain that there is deemed to be some chance around about race time that we might get a little bit of rain. I believe it hasn't rained in Spain since like 1996. Okay, it's rained, obviously. What I mean is the Grand Prix weekend it's not rained. Or at least on the Sunday that is, right? So yeah, stay tuned for that one. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.